remember when I first landed in Kenya, because Kenya and Uganda are very similar, but
Yeah.
even Uganda, there's a lot more than I'm going to say. But like the roads, in America, we're so used to like very like organized, like lane by lane. You have a speed limit. All the roads are paved. And so when I came here, I'm just like, there's this craziness, madness. People are driving on the wrong side of the road. The steering wheel's on the wrong side. And so it took me a while actually to get used to driving like that. I mean, California, Americans, we know how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
But here, I feel like in Africa, here, you have to really be aggressive. You really have to know how to drive.
Right.
Not really any rules here. There's rules, but
they're
there's
kind of like suggestions.
Yeah, and like everybody knows those unwritten rules, even though they're not rules.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a huge thing that I had to really get used to.
I'm Bonnie Kibuka. On my podcast, the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, I've had an honor to sit down with some of the most incredible hearts and minds from Uganda, like Miss Uganda Oliver Nakakande, Joram Ozor Job, the Executive Director of Joram Model Management, Pastor Wilson Bugembe, and many, many more. On this podcast, you get to hear raw and real life stories of their journey, what they've been through, and the people that have inspired their journey so that they can make a difference in ours. Listen to the Ugandan Boy Talk Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Join the journey soon. Okay.
Sweet.
So I was looking on your Instagram and I saw this jersey. So I was like, I will.
Yeah. We have a few football teams, so I'm always around football because the boys I work with are very passionate about football. So
I grew up in Uganda. So my childhood, I grew up playing soccer, and one of the reasons how you ended up on my podcast is I hosted your wife on my podcast.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation here, and so later on I got to know about you, and that's how you ended up on my podcast. So that's why you're here. But she asked me about soccer, and which we call football back home.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you can see my podcast room, but I have all my jerseys hung up, like the Uganda jersey.
You played.
Yeah.
You
I'm so big into sports. I played sports. I love sports. So
you played college soccer in the States or what?
yeah, I played in the States. I played college soccer in the States.
Wow.
Yeah, I played for 3 years because 1 year I was in Alabama. So the college I was going to didn't have a soccer program. So we just played locally.
Yeah.
But when I moved to Michigan, the college I came to had a soccer program on a soccer team. So I played for 3 years.
Where in Michigan?
In Lansing.
Oh, Lansing. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, but my college was in Lansing. I think it's 10 minutes from Michigan State University, if you know that.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't spend a lot of time, but I grew up playing hockey.
Okay.
And so a lot of our tournaments were in the Midwest, Michigan, Minnesota,
Okay.
those. So I actually went to college in Wisconsin, actually.
Oh, wow.
So not so far away.
Yeah. Yeah, I played. So our league, Great Lakes region, we played some games in Wisconsin. So I played some college in Wisconsin. I don't even remember the name, but I remember we were traveling Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I think there were some games in Florida too. I don't know how Florida was in our league, but some reason it was. But yeah, Chris, welcome to my podcast, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here.
Happy to be here, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit.
Yeah. So as I've already said, you were recommended by your wife here. I hosted Imelda here. We had a very great conversation. After we recorded, I was like, I wonder how we will feel to have Chris on the podcast to just get his perspective of life, him growing up in the States and now living in Uganda. So like I grew up in Uganda, I live in America. So you and I can have some similarity, differences, and just
Yeah.
kind of talk about that. I want to know how that feels. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it
Okay.
was amazing. And where in America were you born?
I was born in New York,
Okay.
uh, but I was only there not even 2 years. I think actually like a year. I was like 1 years old, and then my for my parents' business moved to California. So born in New York, but I was raised in California.
uh People who have lived in America or people who live in America, you can tell like New York and California are a lot
Yeah.
different.
Yes, definitely. Even by the speech, everything,
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
way people talk, but even by sometimes when I was living there, I can even tell where I can kind of narrow it down even by the way you dress sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just completely different. I mean, people don't realize how big America is sometimes,
Right, right.
like way on, I mean, it's
There's
6 hours
a
on a
there's
plane.
a
Just,
funny story I'm gonna share about that because so my dad got an opportunity to come to America one time, and
mm,
he landed in New York. And
yeah.
then when he landed in New York, he called his brother who was in California. He's like, "Hey, I'm in America. Can you come pick me up?"
Oh my gosh. Yeah. People don't understand. People don't realize because yeah, and even here I have kids that ask me, "Hey," and they name like a huge celebrity. Hey, do you know this person? I'm like, hey, do you know Arnold Schwarzenegger? Do you know Chris Brown? And I'm like, no, I don't know who they are. America's huge.
Yeah. I think I did that when I first, because I landed in LX when my first flight from Uganda brought me to LX. And I
Yeah.
remember doing the same thing. I made with the person I was with. I was like, "Hey, so do these celebrities like live in California? Do you know them? Do you know where they live? Like those kind of questions." So I can see it.
Even California as a state itself is really big. Yeah.
It is huge, yeah. So
Yeah.
and the differences, which for me, what I noticed, I never lived in New York, but I visited New York a few times. But when I lived in California for 1 month, I think.
Mm,
But like in California, you need a car to get to most of the places. But then
you
when
do.
you're in New York, you don't need
Right.
a car to get to places. That's a
Right.
very
Exactly.
big difference.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. It's very, very true. Yep.
How did you ever get the first decision, or to connect you to Uganda?
How well, I mean, it was never really even about Uganda. It was more of where I was at with my walk and my faith. I was 21. I'm 30. I'm 34 now. When I was 21, I traveled to Eastern Europe. I traveled to a country called Romania. And I'll make a long story very short. But while I was there, it was like a mission trip. And I was newly saved, newly in church, didn't know anything about God really. I went with my uncle. And while I was there, helping people, serving people, helping people with food, blessing people. And from that one trip, I knew at some point in my life that this was what I was going to do. I was going to live overseas. I was going to, help people, and I wasn't going to live in America. I just knew that. I didn't know when that was, but I had the opportunity to join a school. It was like a missionary school where you do like a training for a couple months. And then after the training, this particular organization had locations all over the world. And so I did my training. It was a year-long school. I did my training. And then after my training, they sent me to Asia, somewhere in Asia, Cambodia.
Mm.
And then when I finished my time there, I felt so called still. I was like, this is what I'm called to do. I wasn't called to go back to work. My family has a business. I wasn't called to go work a 9 to 5 job. I just knew. So I came back working for that organization, working for that ministry, and serving wherever they needed help. And then I got sent. They said, hey, like, we see you're up and coming, and you're faithful. You're always serving. You're always around, and we want to entrust you. And so they sent me to Kenya to lead. I was to oversee the location in Kenya. And so when teams would come, when the students would come to serve their time on the field, I was like their leader. I was their overseer. I was in charge of that location. And so I guess I really didn't choose the country, the service that we were doing there kind of died off, slowed down. And then they said, okay, we're going to send you over to Uganda, and you're going to do the same thing you were doing in Kenya, but you're going to start that in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really like a choice, but I'm glad. I mean, I know it was all, how God orchestrates everything,
Mm-hmm.
he knows I was supposed to be here. So that's kind of how I ended up here. I was working with that ministry, working with that organization, and I was kind of at, on call, wherever they would want to send me. That is kind of what my job was. Hey, Chris, we want you to go here. Hey, Chris, we want you to go there. Hey, Chris, can you lead these teams there? So I was able to travel a lot to different countries, Asia, Kenya, I went South America, Uganda, but there was something special about Uganda. And, that was back in 2017 now. So 6 years
That is
ago.
amazing, man. That's amazing to see the
Yeah.
journey. And one of my
Yeah.
favorite verses in the Bible is Proverbs 16:9. We make
Mm,
plans, but God determines our steps. And when you're
absolutely.
talking about that, that's just reminded, like, it might not have been like, oh, I've chosen Uganda, but like you might have your own plan, what you want to do, but then God
Mm,
will just make that you'll manage your steps and get you to where you need to be. And how did you meet Imelda?
Yeah, we met at a wedding. We had mutual friends that were getting. I was friends with the guy, and then Imelda was friends with the girl, and so I was just, we were both just members. We were just part of the wedding, and we had a mutual friend as well. And I've traveled in different countries a lot, and
Mhm.
the locals would always ask me, "Hey, would you ever marry?" Hey, would you ever marry a Kenyan girl? Hey, would you ever marry a Ugandan girl? Hey, would you ever
Yeah.
marry an Asian girl? Just kind of as a joke, but kind of serious at the same time.
Mhm.
And I said, hey, yeah, I'm not against it. So he asked me, hey, would you ever marry a Ugandan lady? And I said, well, I'm not saying no. I'm not saying yes. I mean, I have a specific taste,
Yeah.
but I mean, if she's the right one, then yeah, sure.
Mhm.
And so he introduced me to Imelda. I don't think he told her that he was going to tell me.
Yeah.
So he brought me over to her, and I remember exactly what she was wearing that day, and I knew in my heart that the next girl that I would be like attracted to, or
Mhm.
that I would have some type of feelings for, I knew that was going to be the one that I
Yeah.
married, because the life I used to live before I knew the Lord was just crazy, and
Mhm.
uh, I didn't want to date anymore. I was like, you know what? I want to pursue somebody, and I want to get married, and I want to have kids, and I want to have family. So when I saw her, I'm like, okay, we started talking, and we exchanged numbers, and then I asked her out to go. Can we go somewhere together? And then, as we all say, the rest is history. So yeah,
The
we
rest.
met. Yeah, we met at a wedding through a mutual friend.
That's amazing. And you just celebrated 5 years of marriage. That's
Yeah,
congratulations, my brother.
5 years, brother. 5. Yep.
What is something that sticks out to you between, and I know this is a broad question, but like between the US and Uganda, the differences, we'll start with the difference. Like when you've lived in the US, you've lived in Uganda, like what is something that in Uganda that sticks out to you, man, this is totally different.
Yeah, I mean the very first thing that I noticed when I remember when I first landed in Kenya, because Kenya and Uganda are very similar, but
Yeah.
even Uganda, like this is there's a lot more than I'm going to say, but like the roads. In America, we're so used to like very like organized, like lane by lane. You have a speed limit. All the roads are paved. And so when I came here, I'm just like, there's this craziness, madness. People are driving on the wrong side of the road. The steering wheel's on the wrong side. And so it took me a while actually to get used to driving like that. California, Americans, we know how to drive,
Hmm.
but here, I feel like in Africa, here, you have to really be aggressive. You really have to know how to drive.
Right.
Not really any rules here. There's rules,
Hmm.
but
They're
there's
kind
like,
of like suggestions.
yeah, and like everybody knows those unwritten rules, even though they're not rules.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a huge thing that I had to really get used to, because I was driving everywhere and I had to get used to that. And then another thing Another thing that I had that was a huge difference for me was um, like personalities with people. Um, I come from a family where we're very open. I come from an Italian family, and we're very loud. We're very open with one another, even as Americans as well. Like we're open. We talk. We have communication.
Hmm.
If someone has wronged you or some, hey, if you have an issue with somebody, you go and talk to them. Hey, you did this. I didn't like that. Hey, let's go here. And here in Africa, in Uganda, like people are very, very closed off.
Hmm.
And, um, they're non-confrontational at all. And like, so it took me a while to get used to like, no, this is how we do things as a culture. We're a slow culture. We take time with our things. We care more about relationship than anything else. Like we're just slow. We're laid back. Things aren't fast, fast, fast. In America, we're just like boom, work, boom, this, boom, let's go
Hmm.
this, get high,
Hmm.
let's go here, let's increase in our business, let's see if we can get higher in our business, everything's very fast,
Right.
and you have to like succeed, right? And like if you don't, you're kind of like looked down upon.
Hmm.
But here it's like, no, that stuff, yeah, we do care about that, but if you don't, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
just like it's all good. It's okay. No worries. It's all good. And so for me, that was a huge difference for me as well. Like getting used to that.
Yeah.
But so at the same time, I've grown to love that about living here because there's not a lot of pressure, and like you can feel free to go out and just hang out. You can go to someone's house and just sit there all day and just talk it up.
Yeah.
Even if you don't accomplish anything that day, at least you had a conversation with somebody,
Hmm.
right? And so like that, I've grown to love that about this culture. It's just very like laid back and just chill and kind of like, yeah, let's just go here, let's talk here, let's do
Yeah.
this. So that, those are like a couple things that I've learned. And of course, you have the broad ones, like as the
Yeah.
food, that's of course different, and the language, that's of course different. And the language part, I really wish. I mean, I've lived here not since 2017, and I really wish I knew more of the language. But because as any culture, like
Yeah.
you if you learn someone's language, they're gonna treat you with that much more respect.
Hmm.
And like, so I see the difference. Like when I use the language here, Luganda, when I use it, there's like a change in somebody's attitude towards me.
Hmm. They
Uh,
know that you understand what they're talking about, so they're not
yeah,
gonna say
no, and
something.
funny too because like sometimes if I'm in a public place, like they'll say something about me, and I've picked up some things, yes, especially like if I'm in a taxi or something like that, and we're
Mm.
very close. And I can tell now when somebody's like saying something about me or they're laughing at me, and then I turn to them and I say something in Luganda. They're like, "What? What?"
They freak out. No, those are I can relate to all what you just said.
Yeah.
Especially like driving. I was gonna ask you the question earlier because driving, because now I left Uganda 2014 and I moved to
Mhm.
the States. But when I go back to a visit, I can hardly drive
I
because
know.
my brains have now been switched to the way we
You
drive in America. So I'm
Yeah.
scared to even drive a car in Kampala, and I can't imagine like what people
Yeah.
who live here to go to Uganda. My wife can never touch a car when we're in Uganda. She's like, no, I'm not driving that. So
Wow.
it's I can relate to that. But yeah, to also the slow um culture that you're talking about, which is crazy. I talked to some of my friends back in Uganda, and I live a life of like wake up at 6 a.m., go to work, come back to work, pick up my daughter from daycare, take care of
Yes.
her, do this. So like I have a schedule of things I do,
Yeah.
and they hate that. And say you live a boring life because
Yeah.
in Uganda you can just wake up, go to a body like you said, just
Yeah.
chat for like 5 hours, then go back home, and like it's a free spirit. Like, and
Yeah.
sometimes I miss that. Sometimes I miss that. Sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish I was in
Sure.
Uganda where we don't worry a lot because here in the States you say like if I don't go to work, I'm like, man, I'm gonna be behind on my bills. I need to go to
Yes.
work, That day
Yeah.
of work you've missed, you're gonna be behind on your bills. But in Uganda, you can sit home for the whole week. And
I know. I know. That's what's the yeah. Because in America, if you miss 2 days, 3 days of work, you get fired. You know.
exactly. Oh, but are
Yeah.
there some similarities that um you have recognized between America and Uganda? I remember
Mm,
when I first came to America, a lot of
mm,
people were asking me, "What is something that's similar between Uganda and America?" And I'm like, I don't know. I can't think of anything. But one thing I can think of is Jesus, because when I
mm,
go to church in America, it's the same Jesus we worship in Uganda. Like
yeah.
the believers connecting the people, and I've been helped a lot by the church in America. Like I came
Mm,
here for school, I didn't have a sponsor, and like a bunch of churches donated money for my school. I don't have student loans, but I've graduated with like 3 degrees in America, which I don't have
oh,
any student loans to pay, and it's all been
oh,
through
wow.
people to support. And like for
Amen.
me, I know like the people in Uganda might not have money to help you finish
Mm,
school,
mm,
but the believers in Uganda will show you love. They'll come to your house, help you with chores, help you with this, help you with watching
mm,
your kids, stuff like that. The things that do not cost money that they can show you. Whereas in America, when somebody is willing, is he can support you, they'll support you and show you the same
yeah.
love. So for me, I took that as a similarity. I know it's different
Yeah.
in different ways, but like for me, when I go to church and pastor is talking about Jesus, same Jesus. My dad is a pastor in Uganda, so that was a
Yeah.
similarity for me.
I'm even thinking. I don't similar. I mean, that's oh yeah, that's a great one. I mean, that's the top one for sure. I'm trying to think if there's any other similarities besides. I can't think of any off the top of my
Yeah,
head, but
yeah. I
I mean,
couldn't come up with anything here that besides that.
even there's nothing that even comes like small or little that I can think of. Because the truth is, everything is really different. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think people really realize how much different it is. And I always tell everybody that I have to become more like Ugandan than because where I work with the ministry that I do and stuff, like, it's mine and, I'm the leader of it. And so, like, people have to kind of, whatever I say, go, let's just use that. And so sometimes I do things as an American and they don't understand it. But I always tell them, like, I have to become more Ugandan than you guys have to become American, because I'm living in your culture. And I
Mhm.
tell the same thing to my wife, like, Imelda, like, I have to become more Ugandan. I have to go over to your culture more. I have to put my culture down more and pull up your culture more than mine
Yeah.
versus versus her becoming American.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm living
I think it's yeah. For me, it's the opposite. I have to
opposite.
become more American because I live
Yeah,
here than
it's the opposite.
Ugandan.
Exactly. Because if you're living there and you're doing things as you would in Uganda,
Mhm.
people wouldn't understand why is he
Yeah.
doing this? Doesn't make sense. So yeah, at times I tend to, you know, ask my wife, ask anybody. I'm I'm really Ugandan. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many things that I do that any other Ugandan would do. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just you become a product of your environment. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Speaking of that, have you picked up? You choose on the name? Finally, I saw Imelda post about a Ugandan name. So
Oh
did you ever
yeah.
come down to one?
You're asking about my Ugandan name.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mukisa.
Mukisa. That means blessing, right?
Blessing. Don't I picked that because it was easy. And it just sounded nice. I liked
Yeah.
it. So
That is crazy. I enjoyed that. I recommended a name, but the name I recommended was for my brother because
oh,
my brother's name is Subuga. I don't even know if he has any meaning. So once I went on with the post house she went on, I was like, yeah, I should have recommended a name that has a meaning that's easy to
hey,
remember, something like that.
how is have you lost your Luganda? You still speak it or no?
I still speak it. It's
Okay.
crazy. I still speak it, but I'm glad you brought that up because I had to share something. So when I'm in America, people think I have an accent and
Yeah.
they can hardly understand. Sometimes some people can hardly understand what I'm talking about. But when I speak English to a Ugandan, they think I speak an American English. Like
Oh,
when I'm
interesting.
talking to my friends in English, or even when they listen to my podcast, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is an American accent. Like he no
Wow.
longer pronounce words we say them." So like I would say, so now when I'm doing my podcast, I say I call it a podcast, but in Uganda they say podcast or podcast,
Eh, Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
And so like a lot of people call my name Kibuka in America.
Okay.
Kibuka, Bonnie Kibuka. And then, so when I'm doing introducing my podcast, I say, "Welcome to Ugandan Boy Talk Show with the boy Bonnie Kibuka." But in
Uh-huh.
Uganda, they say Chibuka.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
and then Bonnie, most Americans call me Bonnie.
Okay.
But in
Okay.
Uganda, they call me Bonnie.
Eh,
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so like my English starts going faster. So when I'm
Yeah.
saying words, they
I,
go fast than what we
I
used
can.
to say. So a lot of
I,
my friends are like, "Oh my gosh, now he's American. He's just," but it happens when, because I live with people who speak English all the time, and I'm forced to change my pronunciation so people can
yeah.
understand me. So
Absolutely.
if I speak to somebody, "Hey, I want some cotton," somebody's like, "What cotton?" No, I
Uh-huh.
want cotton. It's like they
Got.
say cotton. They're like, so the next time I'm talking to a person, I'm gonna say, "Hey, I need some cotton," and
Yeah.
they'll understand me. And then when I speak to a Ugandan, I want some cotton. It's like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "I
Mm.
want cotton."
Yeah.
So
Accent is just yeah. He's got to get used to it, man. I
yeah,
know.
what's
So
one thing you miss in America about America?
yeah. I mean, I kind of touched on it, but I touched on it in a bad way. But I would say the way it is good is how everything's at your fingertips,
Yeah.
like Amazon,
Mm.
right? Get it in your get it in one day. If you want to get your car fixed, uh, very organized. Boom, boom, boom. You can
Yeah.
call, get your car fixed. If you want to go to the store and grab a snack, it's very just quick and easy. Boom. But here, man, I feel like sometimes it's just there's so many maneuvering
Mhm.
because people are slow. You know what I mean? They're not so worried about you. You know, in America, like the customer is always right. You know what I mean? Like it's all about the customer. It's all about how can we help you? How can we give you what you want because you're giving us your money?
Mhm.
But here, their mindset is not like that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, yeah, you're supposed to come here. You know what I mean? Like, your car's here to get fixed. Yeah, but it might not be done today. Sorry. You know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
that's the one thing I really miss about America. Like the fastness of it, yeah, is a bad thing, but at the same time, I see like the benefits of it. Like
Yeah.
everything's just at your fingertips.
Mhm.
You can get anything. Like here, it's you can't. Sometimes there's just very the resources here. There's just very limited things you can get sometimes, and like everything down to like a snack.
Yeah.
Like like I
I'm
miss man, I miss like just going to like a 7-Eleven or like an
yeah.
A&P. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
like a nice chocolate bar. You know what I mean? Like we can't do that here.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I think there's been a little improvement because I remember the last time I was in Uganda, we
Oh, oh
wanted to make my family like some tacos. So
yeah,
we went to, I think,
yeah, yeah,
Quality
yeah,
supermarket.
yeah.
So we got the tortillas, we got the cheese, we got all. I didn't know we had all that, but I went with my wife and we
Oh
went and looked
yeah,
at it.
they're dude. Dude, they've definitely made some changes, man. There's definitely been some upgrades for
Mm.
sure since I've lived here,
Yeah.
uh, and so that's a blessing. I mean, it's great, but there's definitely still some things you just
Yeah.
can't get. So
Yeah, like the other thing I was gonna say when you're talking about that, like recently I just called Capital One because is I use a car wash here, like the drive-ins, like you go to a
yeah,
car wash, and like that's something you took like quick things. I just drive my car wash in there, get
uh,
washed in like 10 minutes. But like when you
yeah,
take your car to get washed in Uganda, they will take like 2 hours. I mean, they'll do
yes,
a good job, they'll clean it, but it
yeah,
takes longer.
yeah,
So there's this car wash I use here. I took my car and had some promotion of $8 a month. So I paid that. But after that month, they're gonna start charging you like $40. So I canceled my subscription at the end, the day is supposed to end, but they
yeah,
had already processed the payment for the month.
yeah.
So I was like, oh man, I was late. But I canceled it and it didn't, I think the cancellation didn't go through. So it charged me September, they charged me October, and I
Wow.
wasn't using it. So I called my bank, Capital One. I called them. I'm like, hey. I'm getting charged this money that I'm not using. And
Hmm.
Capone was like, oh, we're sorry about that. We'll make sure this get disputed right
Yeah.
away. $120 was back in my account in two
Wow.
days. But I was like, if this happened in Uganda, just forget about it.
Forget about it, man. And there's no returning, like in America, when your clothes don't fit, you can bring
Mhm.
your receipt back and
Yeah.
return it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do that, they just give you like such a hard time, like, oh, I spent your money already,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then some of the stores in Uganda, they have the word on the end of the receipt: goods once sold are not refundable. I don't know if you ever experienced that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think
uh,
it just boils down to like just trust. I
mhm,
feel like the trust is broken a lot in this culture, and
yeah.
like people here, there's not a lot of trustworthy people, as you know. I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
corruption stuff, and so yeah.
And some people just want money. Their ultimate goal is to get money in their pocket. They don't care how they've got it,
Yeah,
but they
exactly.
want, like, somebody will lie to you because they just want to get money for dinner.
And my friend, yep, I've been in that situations many times. Yep,
Yeah.
I've learned
So,
my lesson.
uh-huh. No, yeah, that's true. Um,
Yeah,
I saw a picture of you eating the roasted chicken on the sticks. The ones
yeah,
they have you picked up on that, like the food too? Do you like
uh,
that?
yeah. I'm a street food guy for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I love the food here is great. Um,
Chapati?
Chapati's great.
Yeah.
Rolex great. I mean, but that roasted chicken though. I don't know if you know the place. It's like one specific place on the way.
To
It's like
ginger?
yeah, that's on the
Yeah.
side of the
Nama Ojolo, something. Nama Ojolo, and there's another one.
yeah, yeah, that's the place. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know the name of it, but that sounds about right. Yeah, it was good, man. That's some good stuff. But yeah, I eat pork. Actually, I just ate some pork earlier, and yeah,
The
the food
pork in
here.
Uganda is good.
Oh my god, it's
I'm
good, man.
visiting. I'm visiting in January, so I'm excited to go to Chadondo and get some pork.
Yeah, for the people that don't know, I mean, that we like all the food here, more or less, is if nothing is processed. I mean, like you go and you buy a tomato, and it's just the way it's supposed to be, or you
Mhm.
go buy an or a watermelon, it's the way it's supposed to be, or like the food, or nothing is processed, so it's all like just fresh and original, and there's not like injected
Right.
anything.
I miss
So
I miss that. I'm excited to visit Uganda. It's been over like 3 years since I've been there. So I'm excited to be there.
do you have an American passport?
Yeah. Yeah, I just
Oh
got it
wow.
in July.
Oh wow.
I became a
Congratulations.
citizen in July, and then I got my passport, I think, like a month later, because I applied for it and I got it. So yeah,
Wow.
it was a long process. It was a long process.
But still, man, I mean, that American passport is
Yeah,
strong,
for
you know?
sure. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to apply for dual citizenship, so then I don't have to buy the visa to when I come to
Yeah.
Uganda. So
uh,
I might need to buy it for January because I don't think I'll have it processed by that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do my paperwork for dual citizenship so I can still use my Ugandan passport there.
Okay.
Also. Yeah, but yeah, I
Wow.
got my passport. I become a citizen, so it's amazing.
Sweet, man.
What do you think Americans need to learn from Ugandans, and
Hmm.
vice versa? What do you think Ugandans might? You might have mentioned a little bit of some of the things that are
Yeah.
different in Uganda, but like, what's one thing you think Americans need to learn from Ugandans?
Yeah, I would say the one thing Americans need to learn from Ugandans is to learn how to be themselves. Um, Let me give you an example. When you're in a church service or you're anywhere out, I use church because that's the life I live and I'm always in church and stuff. But when you're in church in America and you have that feeling when you want to put your hands up and praise the Lord, or like you want to get on your knees and pray, or like you want to scream out and say amen or whatever, you you fear to do it because you're scared of what someone is going to think of you.
Mhm.
But here in Uganda, it's like no, like this is just who I am,
Yeah.
and you go somewhere and you go to a party or you hang out in a fellowship and we're having fun. Everyone's just being themselves, and I feel like in America we have our bubble, you know what I mean? This is how we are in our bubble, and we're not gonna go outside of that, because I don't want somebody to judge me. I don't want someone to look at me weird.
Mhm.
For me, that's kind of how I was. I was like very fearful, like what's someone gonna think of me? If I raise my hand, what's someone going to think of me if I do things this way? If I just be myself. But when I came here, I'm like, no, everyone just themselves. You know, you have fun together. We laugh, you laugh together. That's just how it is.
Mhm.
And then vice versa. What I believe Ugandans need to learn from Americans is like their word. Um, I believe like America, you know, our word is strong. What we say is usually what we do.
Mhm.
Uh, but here, people say a lot. You know, they promise a lot. They say, "Hey, I'm going to do this for you" or whatever, and they fail to do it
Right.
because that mindset of again, it's okay. No, it's not a big deal. They're not going to get mad at me. That's just how our culture is. It's all good. It is what it is. Um, but in our culture, like our word means a lot,
Mhm.
and like if you say you're going to do something, like we trust that you're actually going to do it,
Right.
and that's so I believe that's just one thing that came to my mind because it happens all the time here, like especially with my wife too, like communication and all that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are just some things that came to
I
mind.
definitely relate with some of the things you said because even after living here, coming back to Uganda, one of my cousins would drive me, and then I'll call him, "Hey, tomorrow pick me up at 7 a.m. so we can go."
Hmm. Yes.
7 a.m. comes, it's not like, "Oh, I'm on my way, I'm on my way," and he's still in his bed. "Oh, I'm coming. I'll be there in 15 minutes." And 15 minutes goes by, you don't see him. "Oh, okay, now 10 minutes," and you don't see him. Like, just tell me I'm running late. Be
Yes.
here, I'm doing this, like that will help my brain. But if you
Yeah.
tell me 15 minutes, my brain's gonna be okay, 15 minutes, we're gonna be going.
Yeah.
And that is not there. So when I go when I go home, that's you become American. So we don't like that. It's like I
We
think it's
don't.
beyond being American, but like personality wise, it helps you as a person to
Yes.
run your life better. And it's a good thing to learn, pick up on.
Even even yeah, timekeeping. It falls under the same thing as your
Hmm.
word.
Yeah.
If like you just said, I mean, if you say you're going to be there at 7,
Hmm.
if I tell you I'm going to be somewhere at 7 and I get there and you're not there, I'm
Yeah.
going to leave
Right.
because at the end of the day, I mean, time is money. I
Hmm.
mean, like time is not just money. Time is respect. Time
Hmm.
is everything.
Yeah.
But here,
Yep.
that's what they don't know that or they don't respect time. I don't know what's the reasoning behind
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I see that a lot with my podcast too because I host a lot of people from Uganda. I tell them, "Hey, we're gonna do 4 p.m." and you get
Right.
here. It takes me a lot to set up, and
Ah,
I have to be here 30 minutes before my recording so I can set
right.
up, do everything. So I get ready. I respect somebody's time. But you get
Yes.
here 30 minutes, you've set up everything, sit, wait. It's like, "Oh, I'm still stuck in traffic." I'm like, "Well, we had this email like a month
Uh,
ago, like a while ago, too. It's not like I sent it to you yesterday."
bro, there isn't. That's the thing.
Yeah. But
Uh,
at
yeah.
some point I understand this is my people, and that's what we
Yeah.
go. Well,
Yeah.
another question I want to ask you. So you have your kids in Uganda. Is it harder for you to teach them the American culture living in another country? So like I'm going through that. I'm gonna go through that. My daughter is born in America. I'm trying to think of ideas. How am I gonna teach my daughter the Ugandan culture while we're not in Uganda? For you, your kids.
Yeah. Good question. Also, yeah. I mean, good thing that I lived here long enough before I had my kids to really understand the culture a little bit. Um, so once again, like my kids do things the Ugandan way, um, everything besides the language. And so even like when I when I brought my daughter back home, you can see some of the small differences she did in comparison to some of the other American kids. So I mean, to answer your question, like yeah, it's tough, you know, but uh, I don't know. I mean, I yeah, we raise them Ugandan, I would say.
Yeah.
If you ask my wife, I believe we raise them more Ugandan than American, just because we live here, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think
you
for
know,
me, I think I'm gonna do the best I can, and if
yeah,
I'm not gonna stretch myself a lot because
yeah.
of something.
I mean, they're growing up in America, so I mean, probably best they do. But there are, and even here, there are some things like same thing we just talked about, time.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a Ugandan thing, but I'm gonna, talk it into them. You have to
Yeah.
be on time.
Right.
And there's things in American culture that you don't like, you
Hmm.
know, don't agree with. So you're
Yeah.
gonna make sure like, no, we don't do things. So yeah, there's just a couple these things here and there, but it's not so
Hmm.
difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the other question I want to ask you, me, I'll say my example growing up in Uganda and living in America as a black person, like there are some times where you experience some things that are not
Hmm.
usual to your life. And I don't think it's talking about a lot for the other opposite, like you living in Uganda, you're white. Do you ever experience any sort of like racism stuff, like when you're in Uganda, segregation, like anything like that type?
Well, that's a really it's interesting you say that because I always say like now I understand a little bit why like black or African people in America like I'm white and growing up in America, the majority of people are white. And so but I always wonder like why do people treat people differently? Like I even though I was white, like I always never looked at anybody because they are a different skin color. I never really understood it until I moved to Africa, and I I can confidently say that I've never experienced racism,
Hmm.
but I've definitely experienced like what's the word I'm looking like biased maybe, and example as in like people treat me differently because I am a different skin color,
Hmm.
and it more goes on. They think I have money,
Hmm.
and they think that I come from America, or I'm white, or you come from $1 million, you come from your toilet bowl's gold, or whatever. And so yeah, not racism,
Hmm.
but just that looking at you differently because of your skin. So no one's ever called me names, you know what I mean? Of
Hmm.
course, I call you in
Mzungu.
Mzungu,
Yeah.
yeah, but to me, that's not
Yeah.
racist.
Personally, I have not, and I think we had this discussion with Imelda because she asked me if it's harder for me to live in America and to stand for my wife in America, where I'm a minority in America. I think we were doing it um, in comparison to that. But I try to live my life with, first of all, what I'm thankful that I'm a Christian and I
Mm,
believe in God. That I'm not gonna go out there and do something bad to somebody, but I know some things might follow you, might find you even when you're not out there seeking for it. Like
right.
one incident I shared with her was like how I was a gas station pumping gas, and this one guy was asking me, "Hey, how can I go back to the interstate? Can you help me?" I was in Missouri. I was on a road trip. I don't live in Missouri. I don't know how to get back to the interstate. And I was
Yeah.
trying to communicate with this guy. Hey, I'm just using Google Maps. You could punch in wherever you want to go. Maybe it will help you because I don't live here. But while I was talking to him, my belt was sticking out, pushing my shirt far on the one side. So he thought I was carrying a gun. And so something like that, the way he reacted to me is like, "Oh, you have a gun?" And he started like making a big scene about it. And I pulled my shirt up. I was like, "No, it's not a gun. It's just my belt." He's like, "Oh, I thought you were having a gun." Like some small things like that. Which,
Yeah. Hmm.
but I've never been like, I mean, you like how you said it. I think for me, my biggest challenge living in America from Africa, it's been the perception of what people think about Africans, or like, so we're
Right.
poor. They think our knowledge is limited.
Right.
And so I'm an aircraft mechanic. So I fix airplanes in America. And
Hmm.
I went to school here. I learned, I got my certification. The same schools where my fellow employees, or like
Yeah.
my workmates went, and we all got the same certification. I mean, somehow in any workplace, you might have somebody who has better experience than the other person, but
Yeah.
like we went through the same training. But like for some people to think like less because you're from
Yeah.
Africa, that has been
Mm,
a challenge for me because they're like, "Oh, you grew up in huts, you don't have a lot of knowledge." Like
yeah.
they think
Yeah.
you're way backwards, which
Yeah.
they are true, they're right to some extent, but not. generalizing
Yeah,
it. Not everybody in Africa grew up in huts, you know,
it's,
like not everybody in Africa did this. So that's been a challenge, but I've never really. I might
yeah,
have. Sometimes I try to ignore something. If I see something is going in a different direction, I try
yeah,
to block it off right away. So I'm not gonna
yeah.
get into it.
True, and I'm so used to it by now. I mean, I and good thing once again. I mean, it's different in America, of course,
Yeah.
because it's huge. I mean, I see the same people pretty much every day. You
Hmm.
know, I go to the same supermarket every day. But in America, you're in your car all the time. You know what I mean? And it's kind of
Yeah.
like you go to work, you go get your kids from school, you go home in your car, and you go straight into your house.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but in Uganda, I mean, you go out into the road to buy veggies. You know what I mean? You're seeing people,
Hmm.
so people know me by now. So I've learned to adapt a little bit. So
The other question we're going to talk about just a little bit, an email that talked about it. You can just add on a little bit when you hear about the ministry. We talked about in the beginning the ministry you do in Uganda. You mentioned you said your own thing. So
yeah,
what made you want to start that your own thing
yeah,
and what you do?
I come from a background of drugs and alcohol, and actually probably more drugs, not alcohol, but and so when I got free from that, like I always had a passion to want to give back, and like I went through some really tough times, and like I learned a lot. I was in and out of rehab. I went to jail. I went to more rehabs, and so I learned a lot throughout the time I was using drugs and learning about that type of stuff. And so I always had that passion to want to then give back and share what I learned and share that, hey, like I've been there before. You don't have to do it. I went down that road. And so the Lord always gave me a passion for like teenagers and teenage boys more specifically. And so, yeah, when I was here, when I was working with that other organization, I saw that need. You know, we were doing this, we were doing that, but there was a need missing. There was a gap for teenage boys. And as you know, in this culture, like there's not a lot of dads around, and usually the dad leaves or whatever. And so the boys end up, getting in trouble, very similar to American culture as well. I mean, if you're not raised with a mom or a dad or even a single mother at times, you tend to go off to the deep end. And so, but here even more heavily. So yeah, we have a community center helping youth boys. They don't live there, but it's very similar to like a YMCA.
Mhm.
They come after school during holidays. They come every day. I mean, we have so many different active. I mean, we have soccer teams, we have video games, we have books, we have Bible studies, we have a farm, we have a pool table, we have computer skills, we have tailoring skills, and so we're building right now, we're building a skate, like a half pipe for skateboarding.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of different things on one property, just so they're not out roaming the streets and not being idle at home. And while they're there, I mean, we're discipling, we're giving them the word of God, we're transforming them, we're mentoring them. And so yeah, that's what we do. And it's called 517 Ministries, 517 Ministry.
That's amazing. And yeah, like again, I said, Imelda talked a lot about it too when she was on the
Yeah,
podcast. It stands out to me. Like I love it. I when before I left Uganda, I had a buddies of mine, my youth, my friends, and one of my friends. We used to steal. My testimony is we used to steal in Uganda, like from stores and like food, because we were poor. And
yeah,
sometimes you go steal something off the shop because you want something to eat, or sometimes
yeah.
you steal money because you want to go buy something to eat.
Hmm.
So I like to say we stole for a purpose. Like I don't want to like uh,
Yeah.
sugarcoat my stealing because the bad act is not right. But
Mm,
and when I decided to give my life to Christ and stop stealing, some of my friends never did. They never found Christ.
mm,
Actually, one of my childhood friends, this was before I left Uganda. I got a job to work at a parking lot, and
hmm.
I was managing a parking lot. And at that parking lot, we would wash cars. So there was an opportunity for some of my friends to come. I was managing it, and I was like, I hit up one of my friends, like, "Hey, I have an opportunity here. You can come wash cars, and you make some money because they would
Yeah.
take the money." Ours was just to watch the cars. So if somebody came and did the washing thing, you would take the money.
Yeah. I know it. Yeah.
I brought him to do that. but when he did that, he would come into my house and watch. And one day my computer was gone, and
Oh
I was like,
gosh.
"Man, where did it go?" And then the next day my phone was gone. I was like, "What's happening?" So I
Oh
found out that this guy stole was stealing that stuff, and
wow.
like he was my childhood friend. He kept on stealing till that age, even after we'd grown.
Wow.
And well, the I came to America when I my mom texted me, "Hey man, your buddy was taken to jail because they caught him stealing." And like
Wow.
I think he also like went on to do other bad stuff that
Yeah.
he's now
Yeah.
in jail, and I don't know if he's still alive. Like something like that breaks my heart. But like to
Yeah.
see you and your wife
Yeah.
doing this ministry, that means a lot to the
Yeah.
people in Uganda. It means a lot to me because
Man.
I don't know who is coming to your guys' place. It might be like some of my friends, might be my cousin's brother or my
Yeah.
cousin's
Yeah.
friend,
Never know.
or you
Yeah.
know.
Did you grow
And
up in Did you grow up in Entebbe?
no, I grew up in Wakiso. Like there's a
Oh,
so
yeah. I
it's
know
called
it.
Wakiso Town Council, but
Yeah, I
I
know.
mean yeah. So I grew up there, but I went to school in Entebbe because I went to Kisubi. There's a high
Oh,
school.
yeah. Yeah.
Went to
No?
school there. I went to high school there, but yeah. So I'm really glad that you and your wife decided to do that. It's
Yeah.
anything that somebody does to save life or change somebody's life that means a lot to me. And my podcast is all about that, changing another person's life. So when we talk about God, when we talk about some life changing stories, it
Yeah.
changes perspectives. And when
Yeah.
somebody listens to it, I'm like, hey man, I didn't think about this way, but now when you talked about it, it helped me change my perspective. Like
Yeah.
that's a change. And
Yeah.
even through actions, like when these youth, instead of going to do drugs after school, they have this activity. They're going to come learn about God, play with
Yeah.
friends, and yeah, that's definitely amazing. And I'm glad
Well,
that you guys do that.
thank
Hopefully
you.
when I visit Uganda, I'll stop by
Please do, brother.
do
Please do.
and
Yeah,
hang
we would
out.
love to have you. You can even share with us, share with them. Yeah, please do.
That'll be amazing. So I have three questions, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
What has been a life lesson you've learned in life to this point?
Life lesson. Be faithful with the little things. Be
Yeah.
faithful with something little, because when even though it's little,
Mhm.
and somewhere down the line it's big. You know. So
I'm
be.
glad. I'm glad you say that. I usually don't add on to these last questions, but like that hit home for me because when I worked at the parking lot, the owner of it was not living in Uganda. He was in America. My
Yeah.
uncle, and he trusted me with the money, so I
Yeah.
had all the money and I had to put it in the bank. He wasn't
Yep.
there to see how much money you got. He didn't
Yeah.
know how many cars you packed last night.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just had to be honest and
Yep.
make sure that you put it there.
Yep.
So I would put the money in the bank all the time, whatever I got. And I tell him, I send him reports. This is what I did. I
Yep.
could have taken all that money. I lied to him. Hey, we only had 10 cars and instead we had 20.
Yep.
But in the long run, that money I was putting in the bank is the one that helped me to do some of my processes
Yeah.
of coming to school in America.
Amen, bro.
And if I
Yep.
stole that money, I would have been stealing my from myself. I was stealing
Exactly.
my blessings, stealing my opportunities. So that hit home for me when you say that life lesson for sure.
Yeah. Amen, bro.
What gets you excited about life?
Well, guess me, my kids, man.
Yeah,
I can't wait till they're of age where I can have conversations with them. You know what I mean? Like talk about life. Like that
mhm.
really excites me. Yeah.
that that is something I'm looking forward to. Like I keep telling my wife, like I love her
Yeah.
when she's little, but I'm excited to just sit down with her. And I love to talk. That's why I said a podcast. I like to just sit down and just talk about life. I just want to pick her brains and just like tell her about these, tell her stories about how I grew up, things like that.
Yeah.
Ask her about school. How was school? What do you want to do? Things like that. I love that. My
Yeah.
final question for the podcast is a signature question. Who would you like to see on my podcast next as a guest?
Ooh,
And you're gonna
wow.
help me to
Good
recommend a
question.
person to me.
Anybody, huh?
Anybody. It might be in America, it might be in Uganda, it might be in Italy, anywhere.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. Oh. Do I have to answer?
Yeah, you if you don't have them off your head, I can give you a pass and you reach out to me because we are connected on WhatsApp and Instagram and stuff. But if you don't have it off your head,
Did my
um,
wife? Did my wife say me?
What? Who did she? No, she recommended another content creator in Uganda, but I
Okay.
reached out to her to have you on the podcast.
Ooh, wow. I can't think. I can't think of one, man.
Okay.
Give me a pass, man. You gotta give me a pass. Give me a hall pass, man. But I'll
I'll,
get you. I'll get you someone though.
all right, I'll give you a pass for
Ah,
now. Let's we'll do it. Chris, thanks you very much for your time.
you're
I
welcome.
respect your time. Like we talked about earlier, time is not only money. When
Yeah.
somebody gives you a portion of their time, it's like they give you part of their life. You know, like what you could be doing in this 1 hour could be a lot. So like,
Hey, man, no
so I
problem.
appreciate that, and it's a
Happy to
blessing
help.
for me and my podcast. So
Yeah, happy, man. I look forward to what it's gonna when you post it. I don't know when to do that, but you let me know.
I will let you know. Thank you very much, and stay blessed, my brother.
Blessings, man. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Hey there, this is Bonnie Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching and listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with a friend and recommend somebody to this podcast. Don't forget to leave a feedback on this podcast because that's how we grow. And also don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. Join us on our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So we would love to hear from you. Thank you very much and be blessed.